is a rule, what is out of sight disturbs men's minds more seriously than what they see. That's a quote by Julius Caesar. When it comes to a challenge like innovation, what is out of sight should disturb team members. Overlooking pertinent facts can result in failure. Do you know of a team that failed because of facts that were in fact out of sight? Okay, my intention today is to empower you to change that situation. I'm going to have you so fired up about these two principles. The reason is because they're supported by research, and I'm going to show you some actual examples that will illustrate these. Great teams are teams where people can listen to each other, where they can bring up different points of view, and then put those points of view together in an overall perspective, a perspective that adds a much richer depth than would be possible without the team. How do they do that? Today you're going to know two key principles that will help you do that. First, we're going to talk about some research that supports these. The first principle is camaraderie. How do you have camaraderie? You have camaraderie when you can trust your fellow team members, when you can rely on them to do their part. There was a study that was done, it included 26 teams. They raised the question, does interpersonal trust improve team performance? Do you think that it would? Common sense tells you it would. That is, in fact, what this study did show. I thought it was an interesting study because the way they measured trust was by measuring actual behavior. It's so important that you have a harmonious environment for the team. What you want to do is create a culture where trust can thrive, where you can have mutual trust among team members. This is so important. Have you ever been on a team where you knew you could rely on your fellow team members? That's a great feeling, right? That's what you want. There's another principle that will help you with great teamwork, and this is all about how can you bring a higher level of consciousness to your teamwork. How did this come about? There was a couple of researchers, White and Sutcliffe, and they studied situations that were similar to people that they included, for example, people that worked in nuclear power plants or people that worked in air traffic control towers. These are situations, high-risk situations, where if they make a mistake, it's just going to be a catastrophe. You don't want that to happen. They raised the question, would these 5 principles work for an innovation situation? How many of you think that might? I believe you're going to be convinced that yes, it would work. These 5 principles will work after you hear these examples today. I came up with a mnemonic to help you remember these. ROCOM SBS. The RO is for rotating leadership. What this is all about is what you want to do is have the person that has the expertise be the person that leads the this part that's in that area, that particular aspect, and then rotate around depending on what you're working on. And then the next one is commitment to resilience. So the COM is for commitment to resilience. This means that what you want to do is try your best to anticipate problems. And then if a problem happens, you want to be able to bounce back quickly. Then the S in this one, this third principle is learn from events that seldom occur. What this means is that sometimes as you're working on a project, something can happen that you could just dismiss it as a fluke. What you really want to do, though, is really look at that and learn all you can from it. The next point is the B is for maintaining big picture thinking while acting in the moment. This means that you're able to take a step up to look at your situation from a higher level. You want to look at the overall integrated operation, keep in mind your goals and your mission, and let that inform your day-to-day actions that you take. Finally, this last S is about being reluctant to simplify. This means that you keep your eyes and your mind open to events that happen in the environment, and you can make course corrections if you need to. You don't get tunnel vision. You're able to be open. These 5 sub-principles make up this principle I'm calling consciousness. What I'm going to do now is just give you kind of the example that I'll be using today. This happened when RF Micro Devices was formed. Actually, the 3 gentlemen that formed this company worked in another company, a company called Analog Devices. They knew each other, they were friends, they knew each other's work habits and styles. They really did have a pretty good foundation for working together before they even started the company. They made a vow to each other that they would get along no matter what. They wouldn't let a small issue or a big issue come between them. They decided, we're going to stick together, and they did. The second major principle is consciousness. I believe that they were able to really have an effect here, because even after these 3 gentlemen stepped down out of their official roles at the company, they still influenced the evolution of the company for some time after that. What I will do is go through and give you actual examples that illustrate each of these sub-principles. Actually, today I'm only going to talk about one because we're really facing a time crunch. We're going to talk about number 4, maintaining big picture thinking while acting in the moment. This is the most important of these principles because it really can make a difference in whether you live or die. The first example is about, this happened at RF Micro Devices, and probably their biggest challenge, as you can probably imagine in the beginning, was getting customers. By the end of their first year, they had 2 customers, Nip and Denso and Digital Quality Controls. They were off to a good start, but that's not enough to sustain them for the long run, and they know it. They put some ads in some electronics trade journals. They did have some interest. Some people wanted to try out the chip and wanted some more information. Then what happened is that Jerry and Bill wrote this paper about one of their very important chips, the 2103. They got asked to present it at the RF Expo West conference. This was to be held March the 18th, 1993. Jerry was going to do the presenting. He was very excited about this. Why? Because he was going to be speaking to a key target audience. This is engineers who could use this technology. And he was also very excited because now it worked. It really worked. He stood up before the group. He gave his presentation, and then guess what happened? It was as if the people in the audience went, boo! And threw tomatoes at him or something. His heart just sank. What was going on here? What was happening is that, I mean, they weren't just skeptical, they were downright hostile. They did not think this chip would work. Well, then a light bulb went off in Jerry's head. What he thought then was, I've got to do something. I've got to turn this around and get them excited about the possibility of thinking about trying this chip. He knew that RF micro devices had a commercial technology that nobody else had. He knew that their intention was to be one of the leading suppliers of integrated circuits for wireless devices. And he knew that their intention was to be big. They wanted to be competitors with Motorola, AT&T, and Hitachi. What would Jerry do? He decided to launch an ad campaign. And that's what they did. This ball is a promotional tool that they used. These balls became so popular that they had to have them made up by the thousands. At a certain point, Jerry's wondering whether they should have gone into the baseball business instead of the integrated circuit business. In fact, he expects one day to find one of these balls in the Baseball Hall of Fame Museum. It became so popular. Fact of the matter, and this is an ad from this campaign. The fact of the matter is, however, that this was very expensive, very hard for a small startup company to do. This cost $74,000. That's a lot of money. However, it was a brilliant campaign and it worked. It got the company going. Now I'm going to give you another example of maintaining big picture thinking while acting in the moment. I should tell you that a small startup company like RF Microdevices could not afford to have their own factory. They didn't have their own fab, so they had to get another company to make these chips for them. At a certain point, the demand exceeded their capacity. They were in the process of adding more capacity. However, their main two customers, Nokia and Qualcomm, were just demanding thousands of these chips. They couldn't produce them in the time frame, so they dropped Qualcomm. Terrible thing to have to do, but that meant they could stay in business for the long run. What can you do to have an innovative team? Particularly in terms of this principle, maintaining big picture thinking while acting in the moment. That's the principle. What's an action you can take? Think about that. Get back to you later. To summarize, today we talked about conscious camaraderie. We talked about some research that supports this concept of camaraderie, of being able to trust and rely on your team members. We also talked about some research that supports this idea of bringing more consciousness to your teamwork. I gave you a special mnemonic to help you remember this. ROCOM SBS. The RO is for rotating leadership. The COM is for commitment to resilience. The S is for learning from events that seldom occur. The B is for maintaining big picture thinking while acting in the moment. And the S is for being reluctant to simplify. Remember, and I also gave you an example with these three gentlemen that formed RF Micro Devices. They took full advantage of these two principles. Remember, what's out of sight really can be more disturbing than what you see. To get over that malady, use conscious camaraderie, because when you do this, you really can see more. Make sure your team has camaraderie. Make sure you take full advantage of these principles of consciousness. As you leave here today, I know a lot of this will just fade off into the ethers. However, when you face an innovative team challenge in the future, you won't be able to forget the gist of it because it's right here in the title. Conscious camaraderie.